You're good.
We are live already. Turn off distracting advices. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time zone you have joined us in. You are listening or watching Native Wellness Institute Power Hour. Power Hours were started in response to the pandemic to offer up daily support to folks who were looking for such a thing. And we're now in week 65. So this gives us episode 360. And that's such a good number. We were here last week to celebrate Pride with a Two-Spirit conversation. We're continuing that conversation today. Power Hour is sponsored by the Urban Indian Health Institute. And we're going to have conversations about, we got a couple of guests today who I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Why don't we start with Sky?
Good afternoon. It's good to be with you all again. I'm currently residing in Denver, Colorado. Catawba, artist, disabled, 58 years old, Two-Spirit.
Me.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Taxalapt, Inum West, Michelle Pinkham. I'm a Two-Spirit Nimipu from the Nez Perce Nation out of Idaho, and I have no preferred pronouns, and I work for a culturally specific nonprofit here in Portland. Katsiaya.
Thank you. So I am AC Ramirez, and I was on last Wednesday's Two-Spirit conversation. We started out last week talking about, we defined what Two-Spirit was. We talked about how that term is reserved for folks who are Native, whether you're a Native American or First Nations. The term is not used for folks outside of the Native community. Two-Spirit refers to a spiritual role, a ceremonial role within your community. It doesn't necessarily mean lesbian or gay. You can be Two-Spirit and you can identify as lesbian and or gay or anything under the LGBT umbrella, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are. So we talked a little bit about that last week. The term Two-Spirit came out of a conference held in 1990. And it's for folks who identify outside that gender binary. So we talked last week about a lot of heavy stuff, good stuff, but it was heavy conversation. We talked about statistics and the struggles that Two-Spirit folks go through, struggles with not being accepted in the community, difficulty getting jobs, difficulty getting housing, and the increased incidence of suicides in the Two-Spirit community. And this week we're going to focus on the joys and thriving and ways in which we as Two-Spirit folks want to be, where we're succeeding, where you can help Two-Spirit people in your community to thrive. That's where we're going with this conversation. And I would love to hear, Michelle, where you are thriving the best and how you thrive and why you thrive.
Thank you, AC. I don't really tie too much of my thriving to my two-spiritedness, because just being every day, that good person every day, helping educate those that don't understand the history of Two-Spirits. I do Two-Spirit trainings and presentations just to teach people the history of the Two-Spirit and how we were here pre-colonial times and were accepted and held in a high regard. And I'm hoping that we get to the point where we can bring those roles back that the Two-Spirits once held. And just knowing that we are going forward, we still have a long ways to go, but we are going forward. And by doing that is with the presentations that I do and all the messaging that I keep getting out of there. And it's not just during Pride Month. I do this year long. It's just a part of who I am and what I do. And because I want to leave this place a better place for future generations, have them, everybody learn inclusion and acceptance, to know that we shouldn't be here out of tolerance, that it should be out of acceptance. And as we start decolonizing, which is happening right now, which I really appreciate, the realization is coming about from our history, from our traumas, and everything that we've endured, but we're bringing that back. And even though we're still getting some of that trauma, as with the children being found in mass graves, that's more healing that we have to do. We're having to re-heal from that. And with the Two-Spirit people, that's where we can kind of lead in that healing, because we are going through that. We are trying to persevere. We're trying to get ourselves in a good place with all the tribal nations, with just society in general. And slowly and surely we are doing that with this education, which I really appreciate knowing, because when some tribes, when a child was born into the tribe, they didn't assign a gender. They let that child grow up and decide what spectrum they wanted to go on, whether they wanted to follow the female, the male, or walk down the middle, which is I do. I walk in the middle in the spectrum between the two worlds. And the more that people will understand that, the better we are accepted. And so having this opportunity during Pride Month, even though I do it all year, I really emphasize it on Pride Month because it's really empowering that they have this for us, for our 2S LGBTQ plus community. And so I just find myself being on panels such as this as empowering and thriving. This is how I'm thriving, teaching my kids and my grandkids the history, and knowing that I have the love and acceptance from them, thriving that way. My parents as well, the unconditional love that I receive, which I am very lucky to have, because it's not very many people have that. So just to get this understanding and decolonization done, we'll be in a lot better place. And I am hoping that that will happen in my lifetime. Thank you.
Fabulous. Sky, would you like to take it away?
By jumping off from Michelle or answering the questions that you posed to her?
Both.
Oh. So not fair. I would like to pick up with your thinking first, Michelle. Is that all right? I think there's this place when it comes to being Two-Spirit and joy, that it's also this place where our recovery process, in the sense of recovering from, one, from assimilation, and then two, from the genocide, the history, the unknown, and yet having an understanding, and now those answers are coming, and there's a lot of healing work that's going to come with this, and to be able to maintain that joy. We don't get to be in the bliss 24 hours, and joy isn't a thing that we get to be in 24 hours. It's something that we have to work for, and we have to be courageous, like Two-Spirit folk are. We're courageous, reaching for that joy. And it may not look like joy to one person, but it's joy in your world because it's a brighter thing. It's hope. It's filled with hope. It's filled with tranquility. It's filled with something of a sense of peace and to reach for. And it could be like loving on my puppy. It could be that simple, right? But yet there's a big, huge process to even get there. And And I think that the other part of the joy is having that unconditional love for ourselves as we are, to show up authentically as ourselves. And that's what I'm doing today. I may not carry all the traditions like Two Spirit folk do, but I also understand that there's a primary, and that is the freedom of my autonomy. My job is to show up and take space and be proud of that. I am a Native woman who's Two Spirit in a female body, and I've learned how to live with this. And I can find the joy in that, and I can find the pride in that, and I can find the honor in all that I've done. Because at the end of the day, coming to your questions, where have I triumphed? Where have I thrived? One, white supremacy hasn't killed me. So let's call that a thrive mark. I get a big gold star for that. You know, I don't have a needle in my arm, and I'm not tipping the bottle. Right? So I haven't been conquered that way. That's a thrive for me. If I haven't been doing all these stereotypes, getting involved in unsolicited sex, not unsolicited, but unsafe sex, getting involved in relationships that I already know that aren't good, having to change all of those patterns is thriving. Why? Because I'm beating genocide. I'm beating genocide at the two. I don't need the numbers. There's not enough to make me feel like I'm gonna be 24 hours safe. There's so few of them. And I could take pride in taking on a role within my society without creating the space of, I don't know who I am as a human being. I mean, racism has done that enough. Being part Black and feeling that, and feeling the anguish that goes on between these two oppressions that have dealt with the same oppressor. Right? So it's like I had to get to that place to be able to find my joy in between that world and that intersectionality. And so one of the ways that I show my thriving is my photography. I can always tell I'm having a bad day because, excuse my language, because the photograph is shitty. It's just nothing. I can't even tell you the story. You know? But it's also in my art when it coming to pastels. Might be a heavy topic, but I still get joy creating. And I think that that's what we do as Two Spirit almost inherently. That we thrive in constantly creating community, creating safe spaces, creating song, creating a presence for our own self. That we do a lot of creating to just navigate to get to a safe place to advocate for ourselves. And you have to have joy to be able to say, I'm worth it. I'm worth it. I'm significant enough to be here. I shouldn't have to explain my existence to you or anyone else. But if you must insist, then here's what you need to know. Get off my toes first. That requires a sense of joy in order for the pride to live. Hope that answered your questions.
Yeah, sure. I think there's a big gift in being able to come forward and tell our stories. There's a big gift in creating community and being part of community. And, you spoke about, reclaiming, both of you spoke about reclaiming those roles and those spaces, and, things lost in the process of colonization that maybe not completely lost, partially lost. There's definitely things that have been completely lost, but reclaiming and recreating and reestablishing who we are and what our roles are. I think that the three of us are pretty close to that same age grouping. I won't give up anyone's age here, but we are coming from different cultural backgrounds. We're coming from, different ceremonial backgrounds. There's a lot of overlap, of course, but we do have our own individual practices. I am coming from, at the moment, the near Chiquico Village, Portland, Oregon area. Sky, you mentioned that you were in Colorado. I think, Michelle, you're in Washington. Is that correct? Yeah, so we're sort of the Pacific Northwest area, but definitely individual spaces. And I'm wondering how alike and how different navigating those spaces are for each of us. In Portland, Portland has one of the largest urban Indian populations in the US. I don't think we're the largest, but I think we're one of the top ones. I don't know where it's like where you are at, but if you could talk a little bit about what it's like to navigate the space there and what may or may not be alike or different for us.
Okay. Well, I actually work in Portland. I live in Vancouver, Washington, just on the other side of the Columbia River. So actually in my actual space, where it's Cowlitz territory, I'm not so involved with Washington because I'm in Portland all the time. And when I grew up on the Yakima Indian Reservation, born and raised there. My parents retired. They moved back to our home reservation, in our Nez Perce Reservation there in Lapwai. So I call that home now. Wherever my parents are, that's home to me now. So Lapwai is now home. And I did live there for a bit before I moved here 13 years ago. And there was no discussion of Two-Spirit, of being in the LGBTQ plus community. Although I did have a girlfriend, we were, we didn't hide who we were. We may have gotten a little bit of, people kind of scoffing at us and such, but never got into any kind of a confrontation or people questioning us, damning us. We were fine. And then moving over here is when I learned more about Two-Spirit organizations, because with it being a more urban and bigger city, the resources and the networks are there. So I was able to do some work with Basic Rights Oregon, with other allies to be able to bring forth the Two-Spirit voices, and which I continue to do. So it's so much easier for me to do the work I do now because I have the resources here to help me with that. I see us being accepted more and more as time goes on, and I want to keep doing that. So I'm going to remain here till, I don't know if I ever retire or not, but I feel like this is where I need to be right now, is to do this. I do network with a few people back home in Lapwai to provide any kind of support or to get information from them. We're trying to do some research as far as the history of the Nimipu Two-Spirits, which we have uncovered a little bit of. And to know that makes it even more empowering, that we had warriors that were Two-Spirit. And so just to bring that information on, it was like another way I'm thriving, being able to know that I had family way back then that were Two-Spirit as well. So I am really appreciating my time here. the acceptance that I have gotten, the support that I have gotten, like I said, the unconditional love I have from my family and friends. I mean, and they've actually had to stand up for me. I've had friends, they stand by me and stand up for me all the time, which is great. But to have to explain who I am, I really haven't had to do that. And I'm not going to. So why should I explain to you who I am and why I am this way? That shouldn't be an explanation. I'm a human being, plain and simple. How I am and who I am should not be of any consideration to you because I am not hurting you. I am providing good space. I'm providing good words, and I want it to keep that way. And as long as I stay good and true to myself, I'll be in a good place to be able to help others do the same. Okay.
So when you're talking about, you know, where you're at now and the resources, and there's definitely a lot of organizations in Portland, in Oregon, who are working toward equal rights. How does the resources and what we're experiencing here translate, you know, back home or into more rural or reservation areas? How do we take what we have and support those who don't have direct access to that? Have you been able to do that?
There is one person that I have kept in contact, and that person is trying to create a support group there. I haven't heard lately how that's been happening, but this person does contact me when needed, and then I will contact them if there's any kind of information I need as far as the historical part. But that's about as much as what can be done right now, is just to help them. You know, like when we get a lot of natives over here that access our A&D services. They go on the red road, on the red path. They learn Wellbriety. They take it back to the reservations for them. They're able to get a support group. They're using the skills and knowledge that they got here to take it back home and be able to do it that way. But they're relocating back to take that back there. As far as with me, it's just all virtual through emails and stuff. And because of the pandemic, I haven't made it home much at all. In the past year and a half, I've only been back home a couple times. And so that kind of makes it difficult, because every now and then when I'm at home on the reservation, I'll run into these people and just to see how things are doing, kind of get an update, see what other kind of resources they may need, any kind of help, and then come back. And if they have concerns, and I've told many people this too, if you have any concerns or want any information, let me know. I'll see what I can find, and I'll make sure I can get it to you in any way that I can help.
Fabulous. Sky, what is it like well, I don't really know where you're at other than Colorado, whether you're urban or rural, but give us a picture of that.
Well, I'm in what's known as southeast Denver, so southeast of Denver city limit. So it and it happens to be that it's another college town that's kind of set up, looks like a residential place. It's very park wrapped. You know, it'd be like you living near the university, you know, like Fremont. It's not that hip and cool yet, but and just as a reminder, AC, I was raised in Washington, so in Portland, so all these places that you all are talking about in Washington and reservation, and occasionally you slip in a buzzwords. You're not leaving me out here. Just a reminder. Denver itself is, in my opinion, is one of the primary hubs for activism. It's, you know, AIM's got a stronghold here. And so, you know, a good majority of my photography leads me into these spaces where I haven't been able to participate because of the pandemic. But, you know, I believe that the murder of missing Indigenous women and girls, besides Seattle, I think it was the second largest gathering in March. We put ourselves on the map when it came to the Women's March. Why? Because it was the Indigenous women, and there were two spirits in attendance who were in presence, who led the Women's March. We led it, and we didn't take no for an answer. So there's a lot of that kind of thing. The college itself, it's like you don't even get any of that activism things like you do in the city itself. When I moved to Denver, there was a strong, well, there still is, there was a strong Two-Spirit communities known as the Denver Two-Spirit Society, and I was part of that before its collapse. And now there's, I think the replacement or the quality of what there is now is Spirit of the Sun. And so, and though I think the goal is the same, there's some same people that are there, and that we were trying to work in the direction around the human trafficking that takes place here in Denver. Denver's a hub for it. There's a lot of sex trafficking. So I think we were conscious about that. So we tried to be ready to prepared for anyone that at a drop of a dime that needed a shelter, that needed some blankets, that we were there. And that was the community that I was a part of for a number of years. We stepped up to provide. There was a Two-Spirit family that would come into town and they didn't have shelter. We provided it, or we came up with it. So, you know, being a part of a community like that, and I was able to do it as a group, that is so huge. To be able to do things as a team and with a group, to be able to speak on panels. Another part of my activism where I take presence with me, and that is with the National Council of Independent Living, which is for the disability community. There's very little that happens, speaking to the resource, that happens for the disability community of Native Indigenous peoples. And try to get resources for a trans sibling, and try to have it independent. We already know what the statistics are. You know, when it comes to independent living and having a voice and an advocate. So I'm there trying to generate, hey, you need to think about our LGBT community, especially if you're gonna say and acknowledge the land, then you need to acknowledge that some disabled people are Two-Spirit and some are Black, and so forth and so on, etc. So that's one of the leadership roles that I take in the wide world outside of Native culture. So walking that fine line on the red road. I'm not giving up anything, but there is that fine line, you know, of maintaining me in spaces outside of Native.
Yeah. You know, we could have, and perhaps we should have, an entire conversation about Two-Spirit elders, you know, as we age and as we reach, you know, milestones where we may need a lot more support. I know that there are Two-Spirit folks out there who don't have the support of their families, unfortunately. And, you know, how do we support those elders, and how do we keep, you know, living healthy and vibrant lives for as long as we can? I know that the pandemic did, it really shifted my world in ways that I hadn't anticipated. There was a lot of, you know, ceremony and events that I wanted to go to that I couldn't go to pre-pandemic. And part of that is because I am a power wheelchair user. And even though a place bills itself as accessible, that isn't necessarily always true. Unless you're a power wheelchair user, sometimes it's hard to understand fully what it means to have an accessible space, unless you're deaf or hard of hearing, same situation, you may not fully understand that. And so I've seen a lot of work in the disability community to making things truly accessible and welcoming. But the pandemic for myself changed things in that, Future Generations Collaborative started doing the support groups online. Mm-hmm. I joined the parent support group on Tuesdays. I joined I guess it's the Two-Spirit support group I did on Mondays, which if you're interested in, comment below, we'll get you involved with that. I did the parent support group on Tuesdays. I did the men's support group on Wednesdays. Thursdays, I was chiming in with the COVID conversations that were happening. Mm-hmm. And I know on Fridays they do the women's group, and there was so much put online. We were losing people during the pandemic, and ceremony moved online, something we never thought would happen. Some ceremonies just moved online because it was the only way that we could safely meet for a while.
You're right.
A lot of that is beginning to change as more folks who are interested and able begin to get vaccinated, and the world, opens up, so to speak. And I am concerned that some of the things that became available to me, like telemed appointments, will disappear. Yeah, because, you couldn't do telemed before because the doctors had to see you in person and blah, blah, blah. And then the minute it was the doctor's health at risk because you might bring them the plague, then it was like, let's do this telemed. So, I appreciate the things that have come to be because of the pandemic, but I realize that a lot of that's going to disappear. How will your activism and your lives change? I don't want to say post-pandemic. I know that term is going around. The pandemic is here to stay, but
it's not over. People are still by the thousands. So there's nothing post about it.
Yes. So how is your activism in relation to the Native community or the Two-Spirit community or both? How is your activism? How has it changed, and how will it change again if it does? You want to go first, Sky?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a heartfelt question. Because at the very beginning of the pandemic, I was feeling that in exclusion. I can't go outside, buddy. Because there were so many protests happening here in Denver. A lot of Black Lives Matter. We had the Elijah McClain here. And so there was a lot of rallies that were happening because of the shooting of Elijah McClain. The police brutality. I mean, my God, how many Two-Spirit trans people have we lost due to police brutality? And I couldn't go out there and voice that in my way, like documenting a peaceful event, so that got completely interrupted. But I was willing to comply. I didn't have a problem being the good citizen, stay home if you can. I was like, I can alter my life. I could do that. And it was easy for me. It was easy for me to be home. I at the very beginning, I was eager and let's go and let's do this and online, and all of you suckers who are able-bodied are going to feel my pain. You're going to have to go online. You're going to have to stay connected in all these ways that you never thought that you were going to have to do. And so all of a sudden, this world of accessibility came to me, and people were having real conversations in Zoom. Things where I was having to do it in person to push people, to prod people to talk about. They were doing it. like they were shook. I was like, oh, well, whatever shook you, great. I'm glad you're here. you know. But now I'm in this place of where I should, like I shared not too long ago, a couple of nights ago, where I've had this reprieve from society, seeing all the hard stuff. I didn't have to hear it, didn't have to feel it, didn't have to see it, didn't have to deal with the snide remarks or the rude temperament. I didn't have to be the brave water protector. All of that. I got a break. I got a break. And now I got to re-enter the world. Right? Did I rest? No. I didn't get, I was the one that was telling people, oh, now you're beginning to vacation. Now you're beginning to realize that your vacation is over. It just got real for you. I was living it all my life. Things like that. So having to re-enter into the world has been the question for me. Having the dog has helped because I don't like a messy house. I just don't like the smell or anything else. So I have the excuse. I still don't know if my body can take the vaccines, the shots, getting vaccinated because of my disease. There's not enough research been done. There's not enough data that's been done to give me confidence that I'm not going to end up in the ER or the ICU. I don't have enough confidence of that right now. So that's my primary thought, is like it's still in this rigid pattern of I'm following this place. I want to take shortcuts, but at the end of the day, I'm not to go to the ER. That's still the game plan. And I have to follow that. I don't want to. I want to go outside and play. I want to go do those things. I want people to meet my puppy. I want to do all of that stuff. But there's this discipline thing. And at the same time, I'm feeling the social pressure. Get the vaccine. And NIH every day is almost putting out a new, get your vaccine shot. We'll help you get there. And I'm just like, but. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I think I was able to lay it out.
I think so. Yeah, there's just there's so many moving parts. For it's an overused expression, but it's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Michelle, what about you?
Well, pre-pandemic, I was involved a lot as far as demonstrations went. Like No Doubt, well, that was a couple of years ago. I was at those and was strong in that. And being able to attend different meetings, meet with other Two-Spirits and LGBTQ plus people for different events, and then to do the presentations, go to conferences and stuff like that. But since the pandemic hit, that all went away. Conferences had to learn how to go virtual. I had to learn trainings online and how to do them online, which is great. I'm glad that we still have that opportunity to still have our activism going. Thank goodness to technology. And I actually see that continuing in a certain way. Where I work, actually, telehealth is going to continue. It's going to be an option for clients. If they don't have to go in to see the doctor, they can do it virtually. So
Sign me up.
That's going to continue. That's one of our new normals that's happening. And I see this as meetings too, with the Future Generations collaboration. We're all dying to meet in person. We've been meeting with each other for months, getting to know each other so well, but just have not been able to gather together in person. But as we're slowly opening up, and Sky, I was ambivalent about getting that vaccination. I didn't want to get it, but because I need to travel in August, I'm just going to take my chances because it was for health reasons. Same thing. I didn't know what it was going to do to me because of my health. But I managed to get it, and I'm doing just fine because I'll be traveling in August. And you know, and I'm not going to push other people to get it as well, but I'm doing it to protect, just so I can travel and to protect my parents. That's the two main reasons why I did that. But this year's Pride is all virtual. They may have a little in-person movies that they have minimal attendance. They'll keep their social distancing, and that's something I'm really going to miss this year, is not being able to march in the parade, because I march every year. Didn't get to do it last year. They're having a virtual one this year that I can't take part in, and that kind of puts a cloud over my head, because I so want to do. I so love doing that, dressing up, getting all my rainbow gear, putting on my regalia, and representing Two Spirits during that. So I can't wait until we are able to do that again, and to meet in person with like-minded groups, and do conferences again. I really can't wait, because I definitely love that face-to-face. I love giving hugs. I miss hugs, you know, and since the pandemic, I go to work every now and then when I need to, but I've been working mostly from home. So it's just me and my dog, and he's connected to me all the time. He is so used to me being home that I know that when I do go back full time, it's going to be hard on, well, both of us. We're both going to have that separation anxiety. And, you know, you do get Zoom fatigue too, you know, because you're on Zoom all the time for meetings, just constantly. But to have that in person, to have our potlucks again at work, you know, just things that you miss, but you're definitely looking forward to again. And like I said, I can't wait to meet the people in our support group, to be able to give them hugs, to show them, you know, how much we appreciate each other for being in that group, and to help each other grow and heal. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. But I do see virtual training still happening. You know, if I have to give a presentation and I can't travel for it, I'll do it virtually. So that's kind of part of the norm, you know, and I'm okay with it, just as long as it's not happening all the time. As long as we can get in person, you know, every now and then, that'd be great. So, but, and as long as I can keep doing what I'm doing, regardless if it's in person or over Zoom, I'm good with that. But I definitely miss the hugs.
Me, absolutely. Yeah. I miss the hugs, and I'm hopeful that some of the gifts of the pandemic, like home grocery delivery, we're all tired, we're all busy. Like, to have the groceries delivered is just amazing.
Right?
Yeah, telehealth appointments, those sorts of things. I hope that stays, and I hope all the hugs come back, and I hope I get enough hugs to make up for the last, oh gosh, what are we, like in 16 months into this or something at this point? That would be great. How are you each going to celebrate Pride this year, or are you skipping it?
Not skipping it. I actually, Pride weekend in Portland is actually this coming weekend. Well, it's Pride week right now. And I will actually be in Bellingham on Friday for my son's graduation. He's graduating, getting his bachelor's degree. And then we're coming right back here to our apartment complex. I'm the assistant manager here at the apartment complex, and I decided that we're going to have a Pride barbecue. So all of our tenants are on board. Everybody here is 2S LGBTQ plus or an ally, which is great. So they were all excited that we're going to celebrate Pride this Saturday, and maybe put on the virtual Pride parade and watch that as well. But I can't skip it. I have to celebrate somehow, you know, even though I try to do it year round. But to get non-natives to celebrate with, I really appreciate being able to do that. And that's how I like to celebrate Pride, not just with our Two Spirits or our native LGBTQ plus, but with non-natives as well. That way they can have better understanding of our history of the Two Spirits and how we were here before pre-colonialism. And that's why I put 2S in front of LGBTQ plus. Some people will say LGBTQ plus or LGBTQ 2S plus. I put us at the beginning, because we were here way before that other came. Yep. So
noted.
And when people ask, why do you do that? That's what I tell them. I said, we were here before Europeans came over. So we were at the
Absolutely noted. I will start doing that. Thank you so much for that education. Sky, how are you going to celebrate Pride?
One, agree with Michelle. You know, I had been putting it in front and having the same argument, you know, and you know, and also remind people that lesbian and gay are colonialistic words. That's not our language. You know, we ended up having to adopt it because that's all we had. So we can decolonize ourselves by giving up those terminologies. They don't belong to us, right? So owning that and holding that ground. I would like to celebrate. I do want to celebrate. Pride takes place on this is here in Denver is the same weekend as Juneteenth. So this year's Pride, I believe Friday night, it will be, or is that? Yes, here in Denver, it's where it's going to be the African Americans who will start the celebration, but I don't think they will be at the start of the line. So this is the best that they can do, and we're making progress. And then the other thing that I do is for my Pride is I do a little research, and then I share it through my social media. So I'll go and I'll find another new tidbit on Marsha P. Johnson, or the Two-Spirit who broke the story about Marsha P. Johnson. A lot of people don't know that. It was a Two-Spirit who wrote the story, who did the research there in New York. And we can be proud of that, you know, that we're, you know, symbiotically connected to that story. Right. And that's what we do as Two-Spirit people. We carry stories. So that's the other thing, that as an artist, I sit back and I go, how well is my art still reflecting? Do I have to concentrate a little bit more? Things like that, you know. And then I'll probably have something going on in the background virtually, you know, some kind of virtual, you know. It won't be the bars. Never has been, but it will be the bars.
Yeah. I think, you know, I just got moved into a new place, so I'm unpacking, and I've unpacked most of my art supplies. So I'm getting back to work on my art. But I was going to have it's just out of my reach over there, but I have this brick and I keep, and it usually sits underneath my poster of Mama Marsha. But yeah, it's like, how trans are you? Do you got a brick? So yeah, I've got a brick. That's my, you know, my card. So I'm excited about Pride, and I know that the Portland Parade is happening. We've got Juneteenth, Father's Day, Portland Pride. My son's birthday is on Juneteenth. So like, this is a busy weekend. Lots of people I'd love to see and won't get to see because we're still waiting on, you know, people getting immunized and life to be a little bit easier, because it's hard when you're moving anyway, right? So I'm looking forward to all those sorts of things. I'm going to celebrate tonight, Father's Day, with my daughter, and the Future Generations Collaborative Men's Group is doing Father's Day tonight. So that'll be like a way to kind of squeeze everything into the weekend, right? Portland has a Juneteenth celebration, and I'm excited about that too. I don't think I'm going to be there in person, but I know folks who are going to be there. So I know they'll be live streaming things, and I'll be able to catch that stuff on Facebook or whatever social media that I will be plugged into at the moment. We've got just like 9 minutes left here. And if you have a word that describes who you are in your ancestral language, please feel free to share that. For myself, it's Biawaisa. I use that or Two Spirit. And then if you could maybe say a little bit about Future Generations Collaborative, the Two Spirit group, what that means to you, what it's meant to you over the last year that we've been meeting, and how it's potentially helped you. Want to go first, Michelle?
Okay. Well, in Nimipu, they say that our two spirits are Siwais. The exact meaning, I don't know what it is. So that is what I go by. But I do say that I am a two spirit Nimipu, and just try to be the best person that I can be. I also try to just stay humble. You know, another thing in my surroundings, just so I don't rock the boat too much. But I will if I have to, you know, for colonizers' sake, I guess you can say. But with the FGC group, I didn't start going right away. I think it was in October when I started going, and I've probably missed only 2 meetings since then, every Monday. And that's like my safe haven, I guess. You know, I don't really feel, you know, being isolated at home. I haven't been out, you know, like Sky had said, you know, I'm not out facing stupidity or ignorance or racism, you know, or arrogance. Of being home, I'm not seeing much of that, only in social media. And so that's kind of lifted me up a little bit, because I'm not having to see that. But then yet being isolated has really kind of gave me a little bit of a depression. And I've been through a depression state, but thank goodness for this dog who stuck to my leg, that he shows me what loyalty is, and I have that. So that's my companionship that I have with him. And he understands me now. We can have a conversation. I swear. He knows what I'm saying. And he knows right now I'm on a Zoom meeting, so he's just going to lay there until we're done. And once we're done, he's going to be jumping and wanting to go outside. But just to have a group that I can meet with every Monday, and Monday nights seem to work, because that's the long days that I have at work. And then you're getting over the weekend, and you're getting back in the groove of meeting up with people virtually. But just to be able to have that space to voice any concerns, to share any happiness, to share sorrows, to be there for each other, has been one of the best things that I have been through. I haven't really had a group like that before. And to be able to be with 2S LGBTQ plus natives has been a really rewarding time for me. Even though I've been in groups before, but it wasn't to this capacity. It was more business-like with other groups, but this one you can just be yourself. We laugh all the time, and laughter is healing. We all know that humor is healing, and it's great to be able to have that space. And if I didn't have that, I really don't know where I would be right now. I'd be probably slipping more into a depression, not wanting to go back to work, just really isolate myself more. But now that I don't feel so isolated, having this group and being to share everything, we just speak from the heart, whatever topic comes up, you know, and we'll just speak from the heart, and we all have good words to say. And I love everybody in that group. Everybody has been fantastic. I am so thankful for the Future Generations Collaborative for putting that on for us, especially when they deliver materials to us, so we can have a paint night, or we can learn basket weaving, or we can cook fry bread, you know, together. They'll deliver all the items we needed for that one activity, and to be able to do that. So I learned a lot, and I'm still teaching myself how to paint. I'm still painting. I'm still doing beadwork. I'm still making bannock. I'm still doing pasoli. I'm still doing that stuff, because it's all new to me, and I embrace that, the knowledge that I have gained. And I really appreciate it. And I will be for a long time. And I've talked to others about it, but because of the timing, they haven't been able to make it. But I make sure I have the time to make it to this group. I will not schedule anything else because of it, so that I can be with this group. So thank you to everybody.
Fabulous. And you, Sky, you're kind of a newer addition to the group as well.
Well, yeah, I'm a new addition, but not so new. Right? You know, first off, what it did was interrupt the isolation. All the meetings I was attending to, via Zoom, I was still in that place, even though it was constituencies that I could easily be with without a problem. I still was having to go through having to edit myself, right? I couldn't be all the way out, type thing. And so for me, being with other two spirits, I don't have to be timid about my intellect. I don't have to be shy around my disability. I don't have to give way or allude to no thank you type thing. I just come straight out and be up about it. And then there is this comfort that we two spirit people need. I believe that we need, because we do so much in our community that we often don't get that comfort in return. I mean, either we're the minister, we're the doctor, or we're the bartender. Somebody is need consoling, but very rarely do we get that in return. And so when we get to come to each other, we don't necessarily need to talk about those sorrows. We just need to be with each other, laugh, do great beating, learn about somebody else's culture, be able to say Pozzoli is not my thing. Glad you like it. And you're going to totally lose me if you say tripe is good.
We have absolutely enjoyed having you, Sky, and you too, Michelle. Thank you for being in our Monday night groups, and I can't wait to see you again on Monday. I certainly can't wait to have an opportunity to hug you, although it's going to take a little bit of travel on somebody's part there, Sky. We'll figure that one out. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today here for this broadcast. I just feel it's so important for us to be able to tell our stories, because that's part of the healing for ourselves. But it's also the future of our communities. There are folks who are not out yet, who are questioning, who are facing difficult circumstances. And for them to be able to log in and see themselves reflected on the screen, some of them for the first time, this is powerful medicine for them. And it's powerful medicine for us as well. And the more we have an opportunity to bring this joy, whether it's on the screen or in person, the better everyone is, not just to spirit folk, but worldwide, because we all need more joy. Thank you again, both, so much, and we'll be seeing you Monday night. Bless you both.
Thank you for having us. Bye.